I can call you Choco, given our relationship over a long time. Thank you for joining us on this forum. We're looking forward to hearing about your career, about what makes you tick and what you're passionate about, and hopefully find out maybe 5 or 6 things that we didn't know and other people out there didn't know about you. So firstly, growing up in Adelaide and being passionate about football, what was it like having a famous father? Because my dad played in the SANFL and he was well known throughout Adelaide, but Fos Williams is someone of a legend-like status in Adelaide. What was it like having him as a father?
Look, it wasn't easy. You know, my dad was a tough man. He was very driven to, perfection, if you like, and he wanted you to be great. You know, every day we'd wake up and football was on. We'd get to go to the football. We'd be in the rooms before the game. At halftime, I'd be in the rooms listening to his halftime talk. You know, and almost our whole world evolved around winning or losing. And luckily, Port won a lot of times. We got lollies when we won, and we got nothing on the way home. When we lost, we never stopped. So there was a lot of great times early days when they won a lot of games, but then they lost a lot of games as well. And he won 9 premierships, 5 in a row, but he probably lost 7 as well. And so they were hard times. And so you learn to learn how to win properly and lose properly as well. And so they were great little things. You know, also from Dad, he was always about caring for his players. He pushed them really hard, but, we had so many players come over to our place. Mum and us would, she would cook the meals and we'd deliver the meals to all the players. We'd have player, teas on a Thursday or Friday night after training and things like that. So it was amazing to see, and all of those things I kind of could take into my coaching as I built the knowledge of what to do and what was important and how to connect really well with players.
Having a similar type of environment, being around football teams and football clubs while my dad was coaching, not at the level of Fos, but there was, I think, 2 things that came out of it. One was that you were just engrossed in football, whether it was the smells, the stories, the people, all the various things that sit within a football club, not just the players or the coaches, but the boot starter and everyone that sits within that, the massage, the physio, the doctors, the crowd. What was your experience being around that environment, and did you just love that atmosphere?
Yeah, there's no doubt that every one of those had a little story to tell, and they all added to the great story that clubs and teams provide. And, people who've played individual sport haven't quite experience what we have, and I think that's what you learn in business as well. Is there's so many people, and I talk about the person that might be the photocopy person that comes in, or the cleaner, how important they are to the success of the whole business. And if you couldn't get your boots done properly, or the balls weren't pumped up, or ready, the whole thing would fall apart. And everyone had a little piece in the puzzle to make it work perfectly. And the respect that you had for everyone to do their job. And, there was no doubt, I'm driven to make sure that everyone does their job properly, but I want to make sure that you hold their hand early enough so that they can succeed. They can ask a lot of questions, and then finally let them go and let them flourish and let them have their take on it. But don't kind of create an environment where they're going to fail right from the start. So you need to help them and then give them great feedback as to how their progression is, and make sure that they know in the end where their journey is as well, because everyone wants to know where they're at.
Choco, having been in that environment for a long time, it must have felt as though it was a fait accompli that you'd be an AFL player or you'd be an SANFL player. What was that pressure like for you and your brothers growing up, and your sister, about that family environment? Was there pressure to play football?
Well, there's no pressure. We just love playing. We were lucky enough to have a tennis court. We played footy on it all the time, and we played all different sports. Dad really encouraged that. Mum was a really good tennis player, so we played those things. But I turned out to be a phys ed teacher, so I learned lots of different sports. And I think understanding what you can bring from different sports into football really does help you, especially invasion sports where you have to learn about how to make great decisions under pressure. Having a twin brother was vital for me because it was all of a sudden I had a one-on-one contest the whole time, and I fully acknowledged his role in my success. Were we ever going to be? I think Dad and Mum just wanted us to be the best we could be and keep pushing us. They never drank or smoked. They always said that was giving us maybe a leg up. So for my whole footy career, I never drunk or smoked, and people always tried to get me to drink, and I always kind of deep down inside thought that maybe it was a bonus that I could maybe be able to three-quarter time run over the opposition I was on based on the fact that I was mentally tough.
Speaking of being mentally tough and transferring some of the skills you learned not only in the backyard but also being a teacher, what was that like, and how was your journey through Teachers College and becoming a teacher? How much can you transfer some of those skills into being a coach?
Yeah, coach and mentor, I think, because my sister started off being a phys ed teacher, and honestly, I got into law thinking maybe I'll become a lawyer, but the 12 weeks holiday was the thing that I thought that maybe swung me through to be teaching. And I love the challenge of teaching where, in a class you might have 30 kids and they all want something different. They all are different standards. It's so much like workplace, so much like footy as a team. And as coaches, quite often we refer to, that player's no good and bloody hell, finding a problem with them. And I've always said that it's the coaches or the teachers that have to find the way. And everyone responds differently. So if it's not working, the solution is up to you, and you need to try and find a different way that might spark them, a different motivation, a different technique. And once you connect with players, it's just amazing how it is so fulfilling for you. As a player, I never thought about coaching. I wanted to drag every bit out of my playing career. I just love the aspect of the physical nature of footy, the running, the contest, all of that stuff. I just absolutely loved it, and I didn't know if I'd make, 17 I was playing for West Adelaide and against your dad, actually, so I go right back that far. But, I can remember, happy to get a game, not sure if I'll get another game, and then just building it on. And I love the idea that there was always a ladder in front of you, and could you climb to the next, rung on the ladder. And eventually that was, VFL football and, becoming captain of Collingwood and, even playing state football for Victoria as well as South Australia. It's just wonderful stories that I have, and, how they come about. And, to play in front of 112,000 at the MCG in 1981 grand final was just the biggest thrill of my life. Even though we didn't win, I still look back as a great thrill. And in the end, it became a driving factor into my coaching and could I possibly be involved. As you know, how close you've been, it's still unfulfilling. There's a hole there that, how can I be involved in something that goes for that long, and I didn't quite get there. So, the coaching did something to kind of heal that pain.
You played with so many different personalities, worked with so many different people when you were a coach. When you reflect back on both as a player and particularly as a coach, and you talked about this a little bit around having to welcome people in, care for them, be hard on them. How do you find the balance about getting the most out of every human being that's within your organisation?
Well, you would know, you've been with Ross, and Ross is a pretty hard man as well. The fact of the matter is, unless you can build relationships first, there's no chance that you will listen to people that are really giving it to you, if you like. And, in business, everyone thinks that, maybe their manager or someone's pretty harsh on them, that they have no idea of the feedback that professional footballers have to take. And, it's not... They might get feedback once a year if they're lucky, whereas, we all are getting it maybe 3 times a week. How did you train? Watch some video of your training. Then each game, whether it's the senior coach, the line coaches, everyone's got 3 or 4 opinions on how you went, and then you also read it in the paper. So, the way that... you deliver that and form the connection with the employee or the player will determine how far that feedback goes and how much improvement comes from it. And once you start and understand that, you understand that right, how am I going to build this relationship? And everyone is different, and you just can't say, hi, how are you? You need to go out of your way, and you need to, show them that you're not perfect, be understanding that, give them some confidence that you've seen this before. And, if you follow this same path, we can go on that journey together. And there's nothing more satisfying for a coach to see right now, the improvement in players. Kane Lambert played his 100th game. I can remember when he was almost a wallflower, didn't fit in, didn't believe in himself, played terrific games in the VFL in the 2s and came up to the 1s and wouldn't get near the ball, wouldn't ask for the ball. And, we worked for hours and hours on his resilience and his belief in himself. And to the fact of, I said, you play like Ablett when you play in the 2s, and you play like, a little minnow in the 1s. And from then on, I've always talked to him about I am Ablett, and that's what he is. And the other day, he kicks 3 goals in his 100th game, and I'm so happy for him. We're still connected because of that time, and it was 4 years ago now, the last time I actually coached him. We are still so connected because when he really needed it, he had me as someone there as his backboard to understand what he was going through and to try and find a way. And, I was out kicking the other day with some young kids where I'm doing some one-on-one stuff right now. In the lockdown period, it's just so satisfying. But Dan Butler came past and he reflected when I spent hours on his kicking, and when he's running in, bouncing and kicking, a fantastic goal. The joy that it brings me is right up there. And when we talk about working in business, and the joy that I get when I've had a workshop or work with individuals is just like winning a game. It gives you such a feeling of success that you worked on something and you've delivered it, and they understand it and they've got better. Wow, it's great.
So lots of people talk about, I guess, this generation of athlete or people coming through in the workforce as being entitled and not being resilient, and lots of the terms or the phrases that are applied to that. What's been your experiences having worked or having played with different generation of players and now still working with lots of young people? You talked about resilience in the players like Kane and also Dan. Have you changed your theories? Have you manipulated your coaching techniques? What's it like being across multi-generations?
Yep. Again, from my dad, I'm sure innovation and change is so important. As a teacher, every day, if you come in with the same stuff, it's boring. You lose them. And so I can actually have a barometer myself. This is boring. I don't like to bore myself at training and bore myself with a particular approach. So I will try lots of different things on lots of different people. And so I don't think that young players and young people are privileged. They just need they just need a person that wants to listen to them, a person that will then find out how they are, what they're doing, how they're feeling, and then put an arm around them and lead the way. And if you can do that, they are so driven. They want to be somewhere. They just maybe not know how to get there, and not even know that they want to get there. But once you show them the way, it's just amazing. And you can see the great young players now. I work with the two King twins. They live not far from me, and I was working with them. And we're talking 18 and 19-year-olds, and I'm still relevant to them, and they still talk to me, and we still talk about the goal kicking we did together. And I just love the fact that I can still, have great influence on young people, and then still be so connected to the older people that I had. I have. Great delight to look back, and the environment that I was part of, and certainly a major part of at Port Adelaide. We had, I think it was 6 AFL coaches come from there, including Clarko, that everyone forgets. Wait a minute, he was at Port Adelaide first. Yep, he was. And then, right now, Stewart Dew, how good is he going? And, the idea that these people, including Phil Walsh and Dean Bailey and Matty Primus and Damian Hardwick, could all come through that environment to feel like they understand what learning is about, what caring is about, and what changing the motivational focus so that we don't go stale. And, it's easy to talk about it, but there was only one club in the whole history of the AFL that had won 16 games or more in a row, 4 years in a row, and that was Port Adelaide. And we were the youngest team in the competition. How could you do that? It's because you can change the environment. You can keep, putting a little carrot in front of everyone and making sure that they can see that there is another step, somewhere else to go, and keep them focused on let's achieve what we're trying to achieve. So we've been to the bottom. In 2000, people forget, we were bottom round 12 of 2000, and from that time, the next 5 years, the amount of games we won, which is kind of amazing, thinking that. We're an interstate team, and you know how difficult that is to finish top of the ladder 3 years in a row. It was wonderful, and then to be able to finally, get over the line and actually win the premiership under immense pressure. I'm certainly grateful to everyone that stayed the course and believed in what we were doing, and keep giving us the opportunity.
Choco, you mentioned a number of coaches there that have been through, I guess, your system or the Port Adelaide way. You think about Damian Hardwick, Stewart Dew, Alistair, Clarkson. What are some of their strengths, whether it's collective or individually?
Well, Stewart Dew, he and Roger Jones were the most attentive to goal kicking, and they didn't fluke goals. They practiced it so many times. It was almost before you would see people doing extras by themselves. They were doing it, and I always admired them. Stewart was the 17-year-old like yourself that got picked as an early choice. Priority. So he was there right from the start, and doubted himself, always had some weight problems, and just kept working and working. And, learning about guys that were going through battling weight problems is something that I learnt. Obviously, I went with a lot of Aboriginal players, so I learnt so much from them, and listening to them and understanding them, and knowing that they're not the same. Just because their skin is one colour, it doesn't mean that they're the same, and you can't treat them all the same. You kept learning from each individual group of people. And Damian Hardwick is an accountant, so he is so fastidious on all the numbers. So he read the numbers really well, a bit like Walshy. Whereas Clarko, he was the most driven person I've known. He would search out every coach that he could find, whether in the break we played West Coast, I think maybe it was you guys, and we were in Perth, so we had to buy the next week. He got on the plane and went to England and met people over in England, coaches, and got associated with high performance people to keep learning. And he's into keep learning, and that's the environment that I love. That I want to find out who does something different, you know, even your organisation, you do some great things, and I look at it, but you know that I've talked to you about maybe you should change this, and what about that? And to be in the discussion, I'm not saying I come across that I think I know everything, but I don't. I come across that I will challenge what's going on. I look at what's going on and say, yeah, have you considered this? Why don't you try this? Because I've seen this work. And hopefully the discussion becomes a better product at the end.
Choco, you talk about your Indigenous players that you work closely with. You're obviously a huge advocate for them, and you touched on the nuance that's required sometimes. Tell us about what you learned throughout your coaching career, and you continue to learn around speaking and working with Indigenous players and people.
Yeah, well, I turned 60 not too long ago, and one of the best things that I got, Gavin now is shown that he can do other things, and he's now a painter, an artist.
Yeah, very impressive.
I've got a beautiful, huge painting in my lounge room, and it's got a lot of dots, and you know, it's got a great story behind it. But he's also interweaved into it 04. It's a little message from him to me, and you can't see it until you really look at it. It's almost a Where's Wally moment, but you know, the connection we have, it goes back. I played with him when he was 17, and I was changing on ball with him, so we've known each other forever. Dad used to have Aboriginals in the Port Adelaide team. I got to learn where Dad come from. As a kid, we had Aboriginals right next to us up in the Flinders Ranges, so I've always treated the colour of the skin as just who cares. You know, we can have fun together, and let's see what we can get. So when I recruit Aboriginal players, I don't expect them to be the add-ons. I expect them to be best on ground, and I've told them that. I remember Peter Burgoyne, you know, he was kind of slack with his running early days and complained about everything. I said, mate, if you come in the top 5 of the run, I'll put you on ball. And he did come back and do that, and since that time, you know, become a superstar. I remember taking them, and you know, we would do things like, as I said, treat everyone differently. I would say, right, guys, I want to learn some culture. So we'd go to the Aboriginal Art Gallery together. They would show me all the different parts where they came from, explain to me some stuff. We'd have lunch. We'd talk about it. I learnt stuff from them. They could see that I was interested in them and their culture and their parents and their extended families. I learnt about how they respect and how much you know, family is so important to them. One of the best days I ever did was, you know, it's kind of kooky, if you like, different off mainstream, but I took them all to see Blindside, the movie. And, you know, we walked in just as the movie was starting, and there was 7 or 8 black guys walking in, and the crowd were all white, wouldn't have a clue of what was going on here. Daniel Pearce said to me afterwards, you know, he said, I almost was crying in that movie. It reminded me so much of my upbringing. And to think that I could drag that emotion and that connection, and for him to be confident enough to be able to allow me into his little circle of things, it's just, you know, I'm delighted to think that I could do that. And so you know, when they had problems, when there was you know, at times that they had to go home, when they had to spend extra time, when they needed time to go back bush and maybe just go for a walk in the bush or a hunting, I would give them extra time. And I would explain to some of my players, you know, that love the glamour of the footy show and they wanted to stay behind on a Sunday and not come back on the plane to stay in Melbourne. I said, I'm doing exactly the same to you as what I'm doing to them. It's just a different thing. And I think there are the small little things that make it gives you real understanding of the examples that people have to go to get the best out of your group. And when they know that you have done those things, they will do extra things for you when you really want them.
No question. I remember Ross terming that as in, we treat everyone differently, but everyone will be treated fairly. And so in those terms, it's, there are different ways that each person needs to be able to go and find their energy and have time out or regenerate. But you bang on with being able to, placate everyone and make sure that everyone's in it together. I want to talk about adversity because, not only the players you play with and people that you work with had their own adversity, but you've had significant adversity and tragedy yourself, Choco. You're a cancer survivor.
Yeah, imagine, I know it's difficult to think now, but I was a very fit player. I would win the distance runs and things like that at footy. And, I never smoked, never drank. That was supposed to kind of hold you in good stead in the future. And to find out that I had blood cancer, lymphoma, a bit like Delta Goodrum, if you like, or, that sort of cancer. Mm-hmm. And who knows, when someone tells you it's a complete shock, all of a sudden you're thinking of small things rather than long term. To the credit and the thanks to all the people at Peter Mac, Cancer Hospital, they did some wonderful things. I spent a fair bit of time on radiation, and I would go in there and, I would see really sick people that look really sick. I was lucky enough to be able to still train all the time at Richmond. I was still there at Richmond, and I would leave at 3:30 in the afternoon and have treatment at 4 o'clock, and that's what I would do. And it was great for me to be able to keep that up. I got pretty crook, but then I got better, and I'm so thankful for that. I learned a lot while I was crook. I remember speaking and doing a presentation. I said I wanted to talk to all the radiologists and the nurses, the people that welcome people, because I could see maybe some improvements. And I went there, and the lady wrote to me that organised it. I did about an hour and a half presentation to these people about communication, about how they talk to each other, about the, Malcolm Gladwell talks about outliers and why people crash and why people don't in planes. And I had maybe I was going to crash in a treatment where the communication between the two was no good. And I said, no, that's it, I'm out of here. So I walked, because I'd had probably 20 days where I knew exactly what was going on, and I felt very confident. And they built the trust with me, and our relationship was really close. It was fantastic to be able to reflect on that one session and talk to them about it. This lady wrote back and she said she's done different personal development sessions for their staff, and in 17 years it was the best ever, and it was a practical thing, and it was also from a live survivor to be able to say, this is what I saw, this is what I liked, perhaps you should think about this. And she listed the things that she'd changed straight from what I'd delivered. And I just want to give back, and want to say that I just felt so great that I could make a change that might help the next person that turns up.
You just quickly on some of those techniques that you use in some of your presentation styles now with businesses. Can you talk us through some of those? Because I think those initiatives and those really interesting parts around coaching and high performance, but also your health examples are relevant for businesses out there.
Well, certainly resilient stuff. I've been a lot talking about men's health, especially, and the big tough footballer and how you can survive. I've been in a car crash that all my kids were in, where we rolled over 3 times on the Princess Highway, where someone ran into the back of us. A lot of things go through there. Losing my twin brother at 29 when I'm playing up in Queensland for mum just to ring on the phone, and it's broken my heart every day since. How do you build up and continue on? And losing my best friend and Phil Walsh, and his son being a very close friend of our family, and we got Phil over to Adelaide, and we got Si into the same school as my kids went to. So all of those things are just unreal to be able to deal with.
How do you reflect on all that tragedy and all that loss and adversity? I think on one hand, you could say that's almost too much for one person to handle, but it's clearly made you better.
I'm not sure if it's made me better. It makes me understand that and I say this, everyone's got a story to tell. Whether you're a footballer, I've got a sore foot, I've got a cold, your kid was up last night. All of these things, and in the end, no one cares at all. They just want you to perform on the weekend. So how can we get people to understand that, yes, everyone's got on a scale of mental health, if you like, that it's going up and down all the time, and to be able to say that there is help there. People are here to hold your hand. People are here to listen to you, and there is a way through. And with confidence, with belief, I can. It sounds kooky. I can do yoga and get so much out of it. Breathing techniques, calmness. Come on, you're kidding. I would have said that 20 years ago, but I can do it now and absolutely love it. And it was really good for your stretching as well and your sore back. So, being able to show that a tough old footballer can change and adapt and find a way, it makes it real. And then I can tell stories about, Dustin and what he went through and how we helped him, and my family would have him over for every week, 4 years in a row, to our place where, how do I show it? Well, I've got videos of all, Dustin having his birthday cake at our place, Dustin 10-pin bowling with us. They're just real life things that make people understand we care about you. And it's not about just football, mate. We want you to be a better person. And I think once you show those examples, people believe that they can do it as well.
Very, very sage advice and great experiences. Can I take you back to 1998 for a minute, Choco?
Can't remember that.
I was in year 11. This is how I remember this story, at least. I was in year 11, and my dad's cousin, Brian Cunningham, who was a famous Port Adelaide captain in the SANFL, and of course the Port Power first CEO. All I wanted to do growing up was be an AFL player and work in an AFL club environment, team environment. So I asked Brian, rang him up and said, look, I've got my work experience week coming up. Do you mind if I come and do a week at Port Adelaide? Can I come and look at the marketing team, understand what a CEO does, find out how a team performs, spend some time with Mark, spend some time with the players, find out how members, go about, the membership team go about their business. So I was very fortunate to be led into the four walls and spend a week there. It sort of coincided with me being able to go in that draft it's a long story, isn't it? As a 17-year-old. And then you guys, Port Adelaide, had 4 picks at that 1998 draft. And for whatever reason, I didn't cut the mustard. I've always been wanting to ask you why.
There's only one reason, and you know it. You had OP, which is osteitis pubis, and back in that time, people thought you might as well have, had cancer. That's the thing. People thought you weren't going to recover from it. Honestly, it's one of the biggest regrets at Port Adelaide that what the hell happened to Matthew. I can remember having a kick with you out in the Oval. Oh, the Oval, yeah. Just to see if, how things are. Oh, God, this guy, he's no good. He's just injured. And it was nothing to do with. And then the next year you played state footy, I remember, and just absolutely dominated. And we looked like the biggest idiots of all time. And we had you right there. I'm not sure how you would have felt playing second fiddle to Treaders. How do you think that would have gone?
Well, it would have only happened for a couple of years. Then I would have taken over because he was too old.
Fair enough too. But we did miss a gain on Jonathan Brown as well. I actually said, let's pick Jonathan Brown, and I was talked out of it. And, it would have been amazing. But these sliding doors moments happens all the time, and, you don't get them all right. But I've watched you, and, I'm telling you, you've done yourself and your team, and you've led brilliantly well, and now you've got a fantastic career in front of you as well. So Well done. And
well, I mean, speaking of sliding doors moments, I think
we did try to get you back, didn't we? What happened to that?
I remember being in the in Rob Snowden's house with yourself and Phil, and it might have been Alan as well back in the day, and yeah, it was obviously deciding my career. At that point in time, I think maybe 19, and potentially looking to get a trade back, but. These things, I think by that stage, I'd been.
Well, they're giving you a mine over there, hadn't they? That's what I've heard. That's what I heard. How can we compete against someone that owns a gold mine in Western Australia?
Well, look, I'm not sure if that's the case, but if
you went very quiet then, you've gone red.
If that was the story going around, Choco, I'll stick to it. No, look, can I finish really quickly? On just some of the techniques you use, the visual aids, some of the audience techniques when you're speaking, because I think your story, you've got so much adversity, so many great experiences. You've worked with so many fascinating people. You've led your team to premiership success. What's your presentation look like, and how do you go about it?
Yeah, look, I do it as a teaching thing. So I will entertain you with some stories. There's no doubt about it. But what I do is I use a keynote presentation. So it has intimate videos of all the things we've talked about. It might even talk about when I danced with Princess Di, but that's another story. But just remember it. It's a true one. And the idea that I can show illustrations of what I'm talking about to make it real in people's minds is great. And they walk away being completely entertained, have a lot of fun. But at the same time, especially when it's in the business situation, I challenge people to change. I challenge them to be better. I challenge them to take some of the ideas that I've found over the years, whether they're mine or whether I've seen them and grabbed them from other people, to put them into their business and make their business even better. And that's the whole thing about it. It is an experience. It is fun, but it's well, gee whiz, I might be able to do that as well and help the individual and certainly help the company.
One last one. 2020 is going to be a year that we all remember for obvious reasons. The AFL Premier this year is going to have to overcome some significant setbacks, playing interstate for a long period of time, great resilience, great teamwork. Who's your tip for the 2020 Premiership?
Well, I'm a bit biased now. It's amazing. Which team do I pick? If it's GWS or Essendon, who I was with, or Port, or I don't know, Richmond. But my son-in-law, if you like, is Dylan Shield. Yes. He plays for Essendon, and I watch Essendon hoping that they win. Now, when they don't play Port and Port are playing Geelong, I'm barracking for Port, so it gets very mixed up as to who I support. And I certainly support the players that are still going around. Boakey and bloody Westhoff and Robbie Gray, still the best players at Port Adelaide. It's just unreal that they're still going. Shawnee Burgoyne's still getting a kick in. How does that happen? So right now, Brisbane look great. It looks like really where they play is really significant for everyone. Everyone thought Brisbane were the team, and then last night they get beaten. So West Coast were poor, but they might get to play a whole lot of games at home now, so they might be, right up there again. So it's very, very difficult to pick out. I think that GWS has still got a great team, and Geelong could, they're not going to get to play any home games again, where they won a lot of games early days, even though they won last night. So I don't know, any of those teams. Essendon have got a game in hand, and they've been playing okay without 3 or 4 of their best players. Joe Danaher, if he came back and was any good, he's got what you had, and he's been out for 3 years almost. So, that was just a problem with them.
Just a quick one on COVID and the impact and moving. How hard would it be as a coach and a player to I mean, I know it's hard for a lot of people out there, but how challenging a year would this be?
Well, I'm glad that you've asked that, because you're in the press, and only you and I and a few others actually know what it's like to travel interstate all the time. I hear press who live in Melbourne, who stay in Melbourne their whole life, who've never gone interstate, who've never worked anywhere else, and they're starting to tell us who have been everywhere, what are they complaining about? They have no idea of what it's like to be without family and friends, change again, stuck in one particular place, but then perform on the open stage. It's like, well, it is a really difficult task, and all credit to the players and the coaches and the staff that are getting players up each week. They're going to run, very quickly on top of each other now, these games, and that's going to be even more difficult. So I think you can, probably make a lot of excuses and reduce the blame aspect of performance as the months go by right now. And people who get through it, they should get 2 premierships rather than 1. That's how hard it's going to be.
Yeah, it's a really, really tough year. I think you're right. It's nice to see the shoe on the other foot for a change.
Well, I need people like you who have the media in their ear to be advocates for it, and don't let others just talk you. You say, well, you wouldn't know, guys. You haven't. You actually confront them and actually make them stand up and understand the sacrifice that, West Coast and bloody Fremantle, the amount of hours you spend in planes to have to perform and get judged exactly the same as everyone else. Yeah. Good luck.
Someone at the end of my 353 games said that I travelled something like 871,000 kilometres to and from AFL games. So
to the moon and back.
The only good thing that came out of that, Choco, was freaking fly points. So.
Well, I had a whole stack of them, but Ansett went down, so get rid of them early. That's all I can tell you.
I think everyone was a bit nervous about Virgin as well there for a while. So, Choco, look, thanks so much. We've been long-time adversaries on the other side of the country, but I've always admired the way you go about things. I think what we've learned is your great care and empathy for people and players is at the forefront, and it always has been. And yet you can challenge them in a way that tries to make them better. You've always talked about change and innovation, which I think is something that's so important, not only in sport but in business. Really appreciate catching up today. And even though I wasn't a Port Adelaide player, I've always admired the way you and that footy team have gone about their business.
Well, it's terrific, and honestly, I thank you for having me on. It's nice to think that 2 boys that started off in Adelaide have formed a company, and now it's a national company. Which is, I've always admired people that get off their bums and come up with something new, and away you go. And you've probably seen my ball that I've invented.
Yes, yeah.
I'm not sure if Fremantle have got these. You need to get onto them. I promise you.
I'll let them know.
14 AFL clubs are using them, and I promise you they really work. And if you look up my website, Mark Williams Champion Teams on YouTube, have a look at all the different drills I've got there for people to just copy. I promise you, I'm right into skill development. I'm 100% into make sure that people can kick properly, and so work on it.
You can get in first too. Visit pickstar.com.au and pick a star to work with now.